You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Steve Hakes, and in the studio today we've got Homer Brown, and he's a partner with Smith, Jackson, Boyer, and Bovard, and they are in Dallas. And we were talking just briefly before the break about people that are doing their taxes online or downloading a software or buying software at a computer store to do their taxes, and it sounds to me, Homer, like you've got a lot of the knowledge that people need about all the different deductions and things like that. But so, what's your real opinion about should someone use an online tax preparation, or what's the advantage of going to your firm in lieu of that?
Well, I would say that if somebody with a fairly simple return that's comfortable using the software, technology savvy, could probably do well with a online software. There's some options to go on the IRS website and file the return via that method. So
I can go right to the IRS website if I have a really simple, easy form and I don't have deductions and I just want to report my taxes. I can just go directly to the IRS. I didn't know that.
That's what I understand. I've never filed a return that way. So they've increased us having to electronically file tax returns. But if you get something that's more complex, you have a industry, your life changes, you have a divorce, you're getting married, those kinds of things, you probably are significant enough that you're probably going to have to talk to someone, even if they don't prepare the return, draft it out, give it to an accountant to take a look at. I have a number of clients that's what I do annually, is that they will draft out a return, they'll give it to me, I'll make comments, and sometimes they'll say, well, will you just go ahead and finish it at this point, because there was significant changes.
Well, I think the other thing, if you are doing itemized deductions, I would think there'd be a little bit of fear from the consumer standpoint about being audited and randomly audited, which many of us are, and who's going to go to the IRS with me if I do that? I mean, if I do a online return.
Absolutely. We will go and represent you. We also, or at least in my firm, if you have questions during the year, something happens, if I can answer the question over the phone, I don't send an invoice out for that. It's part of the service. I send out tax information letters. I have a year-end tax planning letter that I'm just getting ready to send out now. I sent them an update on the mileage rates about 2 weeks ago to my clients and business contacts. So I'm trying to keep them apprised of the information they need, and if they see something that clicks and warrants a call or some planning, we sit down and meet.
That's great. That's a great service. And, I think there are some times where people they've got a very simple, they just get a W-2, and maybe sometimes they don't need the advice of someone like yourself. But I think the majority of the people that are out there that maybe they own a home, I think once you start owning in home ownership, you now go into itemized deductions. So now at that point, I would think that I would really want to find somebody that would, like I said, I want to pay taxes. I just want to pay my fair share, and I want the money to be spent in a way that's beneficial for everybody around. So I'm not saying we should avoid taxes, but I do feel like, hey, go by the law. And in that way, if there are deductions, I want to be able to take advantage of those.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to touch on a little bit before we wrap up the show here, and I hope that our listeners have enjoyed it, go to our website, realtalktexas.com. Send me your comments, your notes. If you want to get connected with Homer Brown, I really would advise it if you're in a need for an accountant or a CPA. Just go to our website and you can send me a quick note, say, hey, get me in touch with Homer, or you can go to his website, which is DallasCPAs.com. That's his firm's website, and you can find Homer on there and get connected directly as well. So one of the things I want to make sure we cover, is there anything, Homer, we're missing that you really want to make sure our listeners know out there that's coming up that they need to be aware of?
Yes, Steve. We have been under a temporary payroll tax cut for employees of 2%. The FICA withholding rate went from 6.2 down to 4.2%, and that was again, it was a temporary tax cut.
And when did that happen?
About 2 years ago, it was part of the one of the stimulus plans that came out to put cash in the employees' billfold so they would go out and spend it. And it expires now, January 1, so everybody should expect that even if the Bush tax cuts stay in place, that their payroll check will go down because now the withholding rate will go back up to 6.2%. Another tax provision that was part of the Obama health care bill is called the Medicare tax. And it is designed, again, for high wealth. That was a number of Obama tax provisions are. High wealth being, if you're single, it's $200,000. If you're married, $250,000. And it imposes a tax on either earned income over those thresholds of additional 0.9%. But the bigger tax is on net investment income. If you have net investment income over those amounts, 200,000 single, 250 married, then you might be subject to a 3.8% tax on the net investment income or the excess over this threshold amount.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm clear because I'm a little confused. I'm a little slow. So if I have an investment account that earns more than that amount, or is that my taxable income exceeds that? After I do all my deductions, things like that, if I exceed more, say I'm single and everybody knows I'm married. So I'm married and we go over 250, right? And part of that is investment income. So that portion of my investment income is now taxed higher, right?
Correct. And the threshold it's called modified adjusted gross income. But for most people, it's going to be that bottom line number on the front page of their 1040. If you look at last year's, you can find it at the bottom of the page. And if that number is over these threshold amounts and you have investment income, you're going to be subject to the 3.8% tax rate. And that includes interest, dividends, capital gains, unless it's a certain business property.
So it's that 1099 that I get from my investment account that Andy was talking about. Yeah, that's added into my income.
Right. It would be. Typically those 1099s will show the gross proceeds off stock transactions and not the net. It would be the net stock transactions or investment activity. It could be also royalties. Here we're in Texas. A lot of people have royalty income, so that would also be included. And then there's the term they call the trader businesses that are considered passive activities. Those would be thrown in. So if you have a limited partnership that is throwing off non-self-employment income, that would be included as well as your net rents.
Wow. And we had Nick Bristow of Bristow Residential on, and he was a few weeks ago, and if you haven't heard that show, you need to go to the website and listen to that. And his business is house flipping, and some of them they would also rent them out rather than sell them. Mm-hmm. And getting it, and I do a lot of loans for people that have rent houses, so that rental income that when they finally bring it all in, and I'm sure they would need to reach out to you, Homer, to do their accounting part of this. Do you guys do accounting as well, or do you just do the taxes?
We have several bookkeepers, and obviously we correct post entries to client books as necessary when they're turned in.
So if I use QuickBooks for my business, I can send over my QuickBooks to you guys, and you have a bookkeeper that would take care of it? Or can I just envelope everything up and send it over to you, and you take care of that as well?
We have clients that do both. The QuickBooks, if you do the entry, then probably just one of our tax preparers, CPAs, would be looking at it, posting a correct entries. If you send over the shoebox, we'd turn it over to one of our bookkeepers to do the actual books.
Well, that sounds great. And if you're a small business owner out there and you don't have a bookkeeper, I would highly recommend that you get one. I'm sure that Homer's firm could take good care of you. So if you need that service, go to my website, realtalktexas.com. Say, please put me in touch with Homer Brown, and I'll get you guys connected right away. So, anything else we haven't covered today that you would like to make sure that everybody knew about Homer?
Just do a projection for this year, next year, take into account the changes in the tax rates, and see if you need to push anything into this year that will be taxed at a lower rate, or if you believe that the Bush tax cuts will be extended, you may want to push it into next year if your income's going to go down.
Well, and you talked about that a little bit as far as people getting how would you take income in this year versus next year to have it taxed at a lower rate? How's that done?
Well, there's a number of groups that control their payroll. If you're an owner of the business, you can dictate whether or not your bonus is going to be paid in December or it's paid in January. You may want to pay it in December if you haven't hit your FICA limit, because you get 2% less FICA withholding this year versus pushing it into January. You may also be subject to this new Medicare tax, or believe that the Bush tax cuts will expire, and so that you may want to do stock transactions or other investment activity this year before the close of the year, as opposed to pushing in next year that might be subject to both the additional capital gains tax rate that goes up to 20%, plus the possibility of the Medicare tax rate of 3.8%. So it's a substantial increase next year if depending on what you feel the tax rates are going to do.
Well, Homer, really appreciate all the advice. You know, when it comes to taxes and tax laws, I'm probably like a lot of you listeners. I get pretty confused. So what I do is I rely on a real expert, and one of our experts that we use at Real Talk Texas here is Homer Brown, and he's with Smith, Jackson, Boyer, and Bovard in Dallas, and you can look him up online at dallascpas.com, or you can contact me directly at realtalktexas.com. So, Homer, really appreciate you being in the studio today. And if you are a regular listener, you're really going to want to tune in next week. Next week, we've got somebody very special coming into the studio. We've got, especially if you're in the military or if you've served in the military, we've got retired Navy JAG Colonel Bill Miley. He's coming in to discuss what he's doing right now for active military people that may have gotten orders where they need to go someplace, and he helps them navigate through the big administrative machine of the U.S. government, and he really helps them there. And we'll talk a little bit about what Steve Hakes, myself, does as far as VA loans for veterans and making sure they're taking advantage of all the low interest rates right now. And as always, for the best financing in the Metroplex with the lowest fees, contact me. I'm your host here, Steve Hakes, at 214-643-6021. That's 214-643-6021, or contact me directly at realtalktexas.com. We're here to help. Have a great Sunday.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.